Chapter 10, Lean on Me. I woke up on New Year's Day all by myself with my mind made up. The conversation where I couldn't finish my sentence was all of her I could take, and I couldn't take no more. I did everything in my power to look past all of the nonsense that she kept throwing my way. But that last lie about deleting social media again, then telling me who posts I like and who was a new follow for me, added insult to injury. I wanted to pull up on her in the house and get it over with, but my second thought was right up my alley. When she finally ran into me, I was outside taking a smoke break, trying to get my mind ready for what was in front of me, and she walked right into it. I can't even make this up. She pulled right up on me and asked me did I still want to be in our relationship, and that is what I was waiting on. It usually happened after every argument, so I waited for it, because my usual answer was no longer present. I looked that lady right in her face and told her that I was getting away from her Joe Clark. You ain't never seen Lean on Me? You know the movie about the high school principal that turned the school around? You know what I'm talking about? You don't? Don't worry, she didn't either. And when she finally got around to asking me what Joe Clark meant, I let her know that I was getting away from her expeditiously. She knew exactly what that meant. And for the first time in our relationship, or whatever you want to call it, she knew that she had went too far and it wasn't no coming back. I wanted to go and cuss her out, but I didn't. I wanted to always be able to say that I put up with all her nonsense and never lost my temper. And that is the page I wanted to stay on. I also let her know that I was not mad at her, but after running the numbers, her negatives far outweighed her positives, and that math wasn't mathing for me at all. Her comeback was something or another about not giving up, but it went in one ear and right out of the other. I had decided that we were parting ways, but I didn't know how yet because the plan was still fresh and I hadn't had the time to put it all the way together. I was working on that while she was working on trying to have an adult conversation with me. But it was too late for all that. That ship had sailed, and I was not on it. But I did let her know that I would need some time to remove all of my things, and she agreed. Thank goodness for the National Rent-A-Car account, because as soon as she walked off, I reserved me a car for later on in the day. When I got that taken care of, I brought it to her attention that I needed a ride to the rental-car place, and she turned me down. I guess she thought that by not taking me that I would be stuck and forced to work it out. But that's where she was wrong again. Just because I never went anywhere and didn't do too much, that didn't mean that I was helpless. Did I tell you I was famous? At this point, it didn't matter because not only was I famous, I was also street famous and knew people all over the country without the need of the internet. So I called one of my friends that lived on the other side of town and ran him the business. I needed a ride to the airport and I had gas and gas money, which was all I really needed to say. He was with the move and gave me a timeline on when he would be pulling up to aid and assist me. From there, I started putting a plan together. And wouldn't you know, the universe must have been listening to me because I got a text message from an unknown number and it caught my attention. I usually ignored those types of messages, but this time I didn't. And you wouldn't believe who was on the other end. When I came home from prison the second time and quit the lady whose name I got tattooed on my side in my first book, I ended up meeting a lady named Miss Kim who ran a boarding house. It wasn't what I was looking for at the time, but after a couple bad breakups and dealing with silly toxic women, it became the exact place I needed to be while I was putting my life back together. And that's who the message was from. She asked me how I was doing, and I asked her did I owe her any money. She said no, and I let her know that I was leaving where I was and headed back to St. Louis. She let me know that my room was still available and I could make it make sense whenever I touched the city. That was all I needed to hear, and the plan was starting to come together. The only thing other than that needed to be done was packing up what I could pack so I could make my move. And that is exactly what I started to do. I went live on YouTube like I did every day, but this live was different. The people watching me could tell that something was going on, but I kept it to myself. I entertained the nonsense and did what I usually did for about 30 to 45 minutes. Then I got to getting it. I don't know if you've ever walked away from somebody, but being a poster boy for failed relationships, I'm kind of good at it. The only thing about it is, walking away usually comes at a loss. Something or another will get left where it doesn't need to be left, and that's just how it is. That thought put me in a weird mind space because I had my whole life with me. I had let that lady trick me into thinking that she was the one for me, but in reality, she was worse than any one of the others I had. I'm talking straight diabolical, but that's not important anymore. The only thing important at this moment in my life was deciding what exactly I wanted to take just in case she wanted or decided to get on some bullshit with me. Out of all my possessions, the first thing I got together was the baby's clothes and whatnot. Next came what meant the most to me besides them, and then I put that together. Then came whatever else in the order of what it meant to me, and so on and so forth. I wasn't completely packed up when Paco came to pick me up, but I had a good enough start that I wasn't worried about the rest. The thought crossed my mind to take EJ and Barrett with me, but I didn't. They were chilling in their usual places, and it didn't make sense to put them through the next port. On the ride to the airport, my heart fell out of my body. I can't explain to you the pain that I felt knowing that I was about to have to start all over again, and I can't think of any words to describe it. It was a moment that I don't wish on anybody, but the good thing about it was that it was only a moment. By the time I finished rolling up and firing up, it had passed, and I ain't even gonna hold you. At some point while I was making my way through it, I prayed. And not just for her not to get on no bullshit with me and not do anything malicious to my children, but I also threw in several words about helping me maintain my composure and not allowing me to crash out. Amen. Walking through the airport rental car port, I had all kind of thoughts running through my mind, but none of them were of any importance at the moment. I needed a vehicle big enough to pack up the most important things to me in one trip, and that was what was really on my mind. Choices, and more choices. The selection was just like it had always been when I needed a car, and the only thing I needed to do was decide in which direction I wanted to go. Cars were out of the question for the mission at hand, but I did sit inside of a brand new Audi to see what it was looking like. Add to that a new Charger with the Hemi and racing stripes. But it was a no-go also. There were a few trucks that looked the part, but after checking the weather for the next few days, they wouldn't work either. And then I seen it. Tucked off in the last row of good cars was a soccer mom van ready for a road trip. I know I started this story off telling you that it took me 15 minutes to figure out how to get the third row seats to lay down. Because it did. What I didn't tell you is that when I did finally figure out that I had to push then pull, that's when I got the idea to tell this story. Me and my broken heart needed some form of a release, and getting it off of my chest was the best thing I could come up with. Plus, due to the fact that I never posted her or any of the nonsense that she put me through, this would be the best way to let my audience in on what was going on behind the scenes. By the time I made it back to the house, I was ready. She was texting. But I can't even hold you. She was wasting her time. I had made my mind up that I would not be changed to be in a loving and committed relationship. And nothing she was talking about would change it. I ain't gonna waste your time giving you the play-by-play of me packing up the van. But you know EJ and Bear's things went in first. More texts. Then she pulled up on me trying to talk me out of it. But what you want me to say? I told her I was leaving. I told you that I told her I was leaving. So when I finished loading up, I took a nap in the little room connected to the garage where I spend most of my time anyway. I can't say how long I was out, but when I opened my eyes, it was time to make a move. I still had a few things that I wanted to say to her, but I kept them to myself. What I did was took a few minutes to talk to Harley and Corn so I could let them know that I would always love them, that they would always have a place in my heart no matter what happened in my life, that I was sorry to be leaving them, but they came with her, and to leave her meant I had to leave them. I think Harley understood me because of something he did, but that will forever stay between me and him. Corn gave me kisses, and if you know Corn like I know Corn, I knew that he knew what was going on. I let EJ and Bear say their goodbyes, and we made our move. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. You already know my first stop was to get coffee, and that was also when I decided to bring the Coffee Chronicles back. It's crazy that people will lie to you even when you give them a safe space to tell the truth. I made a couple posts on my way back to Misery, but I kept my thoughts to myself. There was nothing really to say. I wanted to lash out and scream to the top of my lungs about all the bullshit I endured for the sake of being in a relationship, but common sense prevailed. There was no reason in talking about it then when I had already made up my mind that I was going to be sitting down and telling the story anyway. I could do all the screaming and venting I wanted to inside the pages of this book, and hopefully I got my point across. When I made it back inside of the city limits, you already know where my first stop was. Exactly. It was 4:44 p.m. when I posted that I was at Eddie Kane's grave, and in hindsight, that makes all the sense in the world. I wanted to sit down and tell him the story about me coming back, but I had something else more important to do. Right around the corner from his grave is a storage unit place that I've been using for years, and you should already know that I needed them people's services. Unloaded the van and got it ready for the night that we would be spending in it, because though I was back in the city, I hadn't announced that I was back in the city, and I wasn't looking for any help. I got myself in this situation following my heart, and for that reason alone, I made up my mind that I would suffer the consequences of my actions no matter what they were. Don't get me wrong, I am who I am. So while all this is taking place, I am working on putting it together and making it make sense. When I got the call from M. Beasley Live to pull up on him at the studio, you know what I did? While I was there talking to him, he put the thought on my mind that he would look after my t-shirt shop if I went and got it, and that was another thing checked off my list. Georgia, here I come. I could waste your time telling you about what happened on the second trip, but why? I was live when I got there to make sure no bullshit happened. If you seen the video, you seen the video. But if you didn't see the video, just know that there is a video to see. Nah, I can't leave this out. I sent her a text before I pulled up, and she told me that I couldn't come in the house because she didn't want Harley and Corn to see me. But when I got there, she came outside and took EJ and Bear in the house while I was packing. She also let Harley come outside to hang out with me, and that was another tell sign that I had made the right decision. She couldn't even stand on something that she told me trying to be ornery. But before we left again, she pulled up on me with the girl's girl and asking for a hug. And I can't even hold you. It took every fiber of my being to resist. But I did resist. I also let her know that I would never be touching her again and that I would genuinely appreciate if she returned the favor. Then we left. Halfway back, I stopped somewhere in the middle of nowhere and started writing this book. And you know no good deed goes unpunished. I don't know if I posted it or I just said something on one of my lives, but she sent me a message that said, and I quote, "Please stop talking about me. You should have never left St. Louis." Wow. Crazy how you can turn like that. Please park the van away from my house if you can't stop talking with the heartless antics. My response: what you want me to say? You told me the truth from the jump? You want me to lie, huh? The truth may hurt, but it's still the truth. We went back and forth for a few messages with her calling me heartless and me asking her did I ever go through her phone, but none of them were really important. Again, I sent a big shout out to the National Rental Car business account because when I got back, I swapped out the van, grabbed a new Dodge Durango, and a couple days later, me, EJ, Bear, and at Billy with the Bead were on our way right back to GA. She only had to tell me one time that if I continued writing this book, she would have my van towed off of her property. She said it 7 times in 7 different ways, but I got the message the first time. The other ones were just adding fuel to the fire of me writing this book. The thought had crossed my mind to not do it, but she ruined that by sending me yet another long and drawn-out message to my other phone about not telling her story like I don't tell Bear's mama's story. And that sealed the deal. Everything else that I owned was thrown in the back of the van, and Billy hopped in to drive it to a new location just like she had asked. The Durango was not big enough to haul it back to the city, so I went with a different plan. I have street friends all over the country, and when I need a favor, it ain't nothing. I needed the place to park a van for a couple months while I get my life back situated, and I had that. I sent Billy the address and he took off. I was right behind him, but I stopped when I got to the end of her street. Not only did I say another prayer for God getting me out of that situation alive and free, when I was finished, I blocked the fuck out of her on both of my phones. In my mind, if she don't do the internet, she will never see me again. And by the off chance that she does and her profile pops up on my timeline, I swear for Lord, I'm gonna block the fuck out of her there too. I said that I learned something new about women in every failed relationship that I have had the displeasure of being a part of, and this one was no different. But I didn't tell you what I learned.